Okay, can everyone see the screen? Okay, so this is just a little kind of orientation how it works. Most of you've done Bhakti Shastri with me, so it's similar in many ways, but not the exact same thing. It's 10 modules, not 6 like Bhakti Shastri. And the longer cantos are divided into 2 modules, the shorter cantos are 1 module. So canto 1 is divided into 2, canto 2 is 1, then 3 is 2, 4 is 2, 5 is 1, and canto 6 is 2 again. So altogether it's 10 modules. But even with that, it's quite long. So the first 9 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll see there is so much in it. So the modules are also divided into 3-4 units. Now, when I did Bhakti Vaibhava, after each unit we had a closed book exam. I've not decided yet whether we will have a closed book exam after each unit or whether we will do it after each module. We'll see how it goes. But I'll give you the questions in advance, the Purva Svadhyaya questions, just like I did with Bhakti Shastri, and then you can prepare with that. By the way, all these exams and questions, they're not compulsory. So you can just come and study, no pressure to do exams if you feel that that's too much. If you do the exams, pass all the exams, then you got like Bhakti Vaibhava certificate at the end. But if you just come for the association and the study, that's also very welcome. So closed book exams will also have open book essays. Again, I will put up a whole list of essay questions, so maybe 30 questions for each module. And of the 30 questions, you can choose 2 or 3 and write an essay, maybe 400 or 500 words on each. I put up the word limits for each thing. So you don't need to write an essay on each of the questions. It's just you choose 2 or 3 that you feel kind of close to heart and write about that. Once I put them up, we can kind of explain that a bit more. And there are 4 presentations. So this is something new compared to Bhakti Shastri. 45-minute to an hour long presentations after module 3. So after the first 2 cantos, then after the 3rd canto, 4th canto, and after the 6th canto. And again, there's going to be maybe 30 different topics you can choose, from which you can choose, but only choose one. And on that topic, let's say Krishna's mercy on his devotees, or the structure of the Bhagavatam, or the prayers in the 6th canto. So it's a thematic thing. You need to go through that whole kind of 1 or 2 cantos and make a presentation, a little bit like giving class, but you also need to make slides, and a little bit like as if you were teaching the Bhakti Vaibhava, but a theme, not systematic, but a particular theme. So that's the presentations. For all of these things, I will give you samples. So like just so you get an idea of what's expected or what kind of thing to do. There's going to be shloka recitations. The compulsory minimum for Bhakti Vaibhava is 70 shlokas, 70, for the whole course. So I know a lot of devotees struggle with learning shlokas, Sanskrit. So I'm expecting 70. In the course of the Bhakti Vaibhava, I give more shlokas. If you want, you can learn these as well, but I'm not going to test you on those. So that's more just for personal excitement if you like shlokas. And the shloka recitations, there'll be different ways we can do it. Either you can write them down just like a closed book exam, or what some devotees do is we arrange a Zoom call, they close their eyes and then they recite their shlokas. So that's also another option. We can see how it works. And then class participation. Again, if you not kind of working towards a certificate, you come when you can, you don't come when you can't. Of course, we're always really happy when we are here, but no pressure. If you are working towards a certificate, then there is like a a certain level that you need to be here. Of course, if there's some family emergency or something happens, it's no problem. Okay, so this is the kind of structure and assessments. Is it somewhat clear, or are there any questions that kind of come up right now? Okay. So a little bit of how we got here. This is from Keshava Maharaj. I found this really exciting, so I put this up. So Bhagavad Gita is a foundational study, Srimad Bhagavatam is graduate, and Chaitanya Charitamrita is postgraduate. So now we are on the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavad Gita is the words of Krishna, and it starts with you are not the body, you are the spirit soul, chapter 2. And it ends with Sarva Dharman Parityajya, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. That's where Bhagavad Gita ends. Now you'll see where Srimad Bhagavatam begins is rejecting all cheating religions. So that's the second verse of the first canto, first chapter, second verse. Rejecting all cheating religions, get to the essence, get to Bhakti. That's where it starts. And it ends with chanting the holy names is the means to destroy all sinful reactions. And then we get to Chaitanya Charitamrita, which begins with Krishna explaining, I will come to teach the process of chanting by practicing myself. This is the Lord Chaitanya's incarnation. And ends with Sri Chaitanya forgot himself throughout the entire day and night, being merged in an ocean of ecstatic love for Krishna. Okay, so you can see the progression from you are not the body to the highest levels of Prema Bhakti. Okay, really wonderful. And this is something I put here. It's from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. So Bhagavad Gita is the words of Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam is the activities of Krishna. And Chaitanya Charitamrita is the mind of Krishna. So when you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, there Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes things like, Krishna thought, I've not propagated the process of devotional service for such a long time. So I think it's really, really amazing that somebody can write what Krishna thought. It's not even what Krishna said or what Krishna did, but what Krishna thought. It's really, really amazing. So this is just to give you a little context of where we are. So Bhagavad Gita, you've all studied that into some depth. So now we are on Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna Charana Renu, really good to see you as well. And then a little bit more about the Bhakti Vaibhava course. This is based on Gauragandharsham Prabhu. They kind of, I studied Bhakti Vaibhava with him. I feel really, really inspired by him. And they have a whole Bhakti Vedanta Vidyapit in Govardhan Eco Village near Mumbai, Pune. So their kind of idea of the Bhakti Vaibhava course or any studying course, that it has 5 aspects or 5 parts. One is Svadhyaya, which is the most obvious, that you study. Sadhana, chanting rounds, any regulated devotional practices. Sangha, association, which many of you mentioned. I was really happy to hear that, because this course is not just about studying, but also about getting association of like-minded devotees. Sadachar is our behavior, our dealings, following Vaishnava etiquette, and then Seva, service. So studying, but also doing some practical service as well. And then this studying, it's divided into 5 parts, or I guess 5 steps, you could say. So first we hear, the Shravanam. The Mananam is recollection or remembering what we heard. Nididhyasanam is contemplation, thinking about what we hear. Patanam, recitation, which is the shlokas, learning shlokas. And then Kirtanam is speaking. Now, when I explained about the assessment, I'll show you how it's related to these different aspects. So Shravanam is the classes, hearing the classes. It's a systematic kind of going through the Bhagavatam. The Mananam, or the recollection, is related to the closed book exams. Because you study, you kind of try to remember what you study. Then the Nididhyasanam, the contemplation, is the open book essays. Those of you who did the open book homework questions, you'll see that for these you need to think a bit more deeply about what we learned. Make connections, find, find connections, synthesize, seemingly contradictory things. So basically think more deeply about what we studied. The patanam or recitation, that's shlokas, shloka recitation, and then kirtanam, speaking. Even if you never kind of contribute with a comment to the class, you need to do a presentation. So that's going to be the speaking. So that these are the different aspects. Okay. And next, as we are starting to study Srimad Bhagavatam, I always find that it's very uplifting and inspiring to hear about the glories of what we are going to study, so we can appreciate it more. So I put up a few quotes. This is from Sanatan Goswami. He's got these really, really wonderful quotes. But just so it's not only me talking, maybe Manjuali, you could read the first bit, and then other devotees can read. Just read the English. That's good.
O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar tuned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, you are the most prominent transcendental fruit of the Vedas and are enriched with the jewels of all philosophical conclusions. You grant spiritual vision to all people of the world and are the very life breath of the Vaishnava devotees. O Lord, you are the sun which has risen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. Actually, you are Lord Krishna, who has returned among us.
Thank you. Charanarenu, could you read the next one? I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's fine.
O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. By your recitation, one attains transcendental bliss. Because your syllables shower down your love of God, you are to be served by everyone, always, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna.
Thank you. Saurabh Damodar Prabhu, could you read the next one?
O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, companion and teacher, O my great wealth and deliverer, O my good fortune and bliss, I offer respectful obeisances unto you.
Thank you. And Braja Devi, can you read the last one?
O Srimad Bhagavatam, O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Accompanied by pure love of Krishna, please manifest yourself in my heart and throat.
So these are really, really deep verses. We could have like 3 classes just on these. But I leave it to you to kind of meditate on them, think about, O Srimad Bhagavatam, my only friend, companion, and teacher, please manifest yourself in my heart and in my throat, in what I feel and what I speak. These are really wonderful verses. And then the next ones are from actually Srila Prabhupada, so it's from Prabhupada's preface. Nilachara Chandra Prabhu, can you read the first one? This one's Prabhupada is talking about the Bhagavatam.
The reading matter is so arranged with the original Sanskrit text, its English translation, synonymous translation, and purport, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos.
So this is something to consider. So at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos, studying it, if we did it well, then we'll become first self-realized, God-realized souls. Guru Bhakti, can you read the next one?
There is a need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the respiritualization of the entire human society.
Thank you. And Ramananda Prabhu, could you read the last one?
It is powerful reading matter in the Sanskrit language, and it is now rendered into English elaborately so that simply by a careful reading, one will know God perfectly well. So much so that the reader will be sufficiently educated to defend himself from the onslaught of atheists. Over and above this, the reader will be able to convert others to accepting God as a concrete principle.
Thank you. So again, very deep. I'll let you kind of contemplate, think about these. And then as we kind of start studying the Bhagavatam, there are 10 topics in the Bhagavatam which are described in the second canto. We'll get there eventually. So Atra Sargo Visargascha Sthanam Poshanam Utayo Manvantareshana Kata Nirodha Muktirashaya. So these 10 topics or 10 divisions are creation, sub-creation, so creation by Vishnu, sub-creation by Brahma, the planetary systems, protection by the Lord, creative impetus, changes of manus, science of God, returning home, liberation, and the summum bonum or Krishna. So these are the 10 topics. So this is one way of looking at the Bhagavatam. Another way of looking at the Bhagavatam is seeing the Bhagavatam as Krishna himself, in which case the first and second cantos of the Bhagavatam are Krishna's lotus feet. So we're just starting to study Krishna's lotus feet. The third and fourth cantos are his thighs. The fifth canto is his navel. The sixth canto is his chest. The seventh and eighth cantos are his arms. The ninth canto is his throat. The 10th canto is his beautiful lotus face. The 11th canto is his forehead. The 12th canto is his head. I bow down to that Lord, the ocean of mercy, whose color is like that of a tamal tree, and who appears in this world for the welfare of all. I worship him as the bridge for crossing the unfathomable ocean of material existence. The Bhagavatam has appeared as his very self. The Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna, and the attitude that we approach the Bhagavatam with, Krishna through the Bhagavatam reciprocates. So you will find that as you study, as you go deeper, if your attitude is right, if you have the right service attitude, attention, then you will feel Krishna's reciprocation more and more. Now, we'll study with the first canto, start with the first canto, and the first 3 chapters, but especially the first first 3 verses are very, very technical, very difficult. So devotees sometimes get stuck and either don't read it at all, or they just go to the Dhruva Maharaj pastime or Ambarish Maharaj pastime, which are also really, really wonderful. But now we are trying to do a systematic study, so go through. So just kind of take a deep breath, even if you find it difficult, just kind of carry on, don't give up. And then we'll get to the nectar, and after a while we'll understand why this part is also nectar. Okay? So don't get too intimidated by it. I was listening to a class by Burijan Prabhu, who wrote this wonderful book, Unveiling His Lotus Feet. I heartily recommend it if you get a chance to read it. It's the kind of summary of the first 4 cantos of the Bhagavatam, but in a kind of, not verse by verse, but it's like the flow of the Bhagavatam. So he said that he heard that Prabhupada, when he started translating the Bhagavatam, he wasn't sure whether he can finish it. It's a very 18,000 verses is a very big project. So he just put everything, he included everything in the first canto. So it's everything there. But even with that, he wasn't sure whether he can finish the first canto. So he put everything in the first 3 chapters. And even with the first 3 chapters, he just put everything in the first 3 verses. So of course there is more and more, you can kind of open it up, but all the kind of philosophy, the main truths of Krishna consciousness are there in the first 3 verses. So that's why they're so technical, so, how would you say, you could say difficult. And then another thing about, as we start to read, that the Bhagavatam is in the form of questions and answers, and it's a nested conversation. So as we start reading, you will see that Shonaka Rishi, who's the leader of the sages of Naimisharanya, he's talking with Sutta Goswami. I don't know if you can see this picture. This is like Sutta Goswami, and then Shonaka Rishi, the leader of the sages, is talking with him, asking him questions, Sutta Goswami replying. And Sutta Goswami is answering by quoting the conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadev Goswami, which is, I guess in one sense, that's the conversation that starts at the beginning of the end of first canto, beginning of second canto. And then within that, you got other conversations between Narada Muni and Lord Brahma, Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj. Even within here, we got a conversation between Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. So as we are reading, try to keep in mind who's talking, you know, what are the different levels of conversation. We'll kind of, I draw your attention to it, but just don't forget it, you know. Devotees ask questions, and then the answer may come 3 chapters later. Okay, so again, just keep all this in mind. Okay, and then another interesting point from Vallabhacharya's commentary. In this first canto, there are 3 speaker-hearer pairs. So I mentioned Naimisharanya sages headed by Shonaka Rishi and Sutta Goswami. They are one pair. Vyasadeva and Narada Muni. And then Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadev Goswami, they are the 3rd pair. And Vallabhacharya kind of put them in 3 categories. Of course, they're all pure devotees, but in the way that they kind of deal, or they kind of manifest themselves, there are different levels. So the Naimisharanya sages and Sutta Goswami, they are on the Kanishta level because there is this karma kanda inclination. So remember, they started to do a big sacrifice, and it wasn't going well. Their faces become black, and that's when they started hearing the Bhagavatam. So there is a little kind of karma kanda inclination. So that's why they're called, they're on a Kanishta or beginner level. Then Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, they are considered to be on the Madhyama level, because Vyasadeva was in this stage of despondency. Remember, he wrote all the Vedic literatures, a huge undertaking, and still he was feeling dissatisfied, he was feeling frustrated. And then Narada Muni came, and by his instructions, he kind of got on the right path and compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll go into this much more deeply as we study this whole pastime with Vyasadeva and Narada Muni. There's so many wonderful lessons, but just for the time being, for something interesting. So this is Madhyama level. So here is Vyasadeva kind of feeling really sad and dissatisfied and frustrated. And then Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadev Goswami, they are on the Uttama level. They have no other interest in life, no other plan, no other agenda. They just hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Parikshit Maharaj, he was the emperor of the whole world, but he retired from all worldly social responsibility, left everything aside. And Shukadev Goswami, very similar. He's just wandering around, speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. So neither of them have any interest in the world other than Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam. So the foremost qualification of the speaker and the hearer is renunciation of the material world. So this is just something interesting and something to kind of start our thinking processes. Another really interesting point to keep in mind as we start studying, this is something I heard from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. He compared Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, but the scriptures in general, they are like a love letter from Krishna to the living entity. So imagine you got a very close friend who moves away. They live in some other part of the world, and you really miss them. and then you write them a letter or an email or a text or something like that, saying, "My dear friend, I really, really miss you. I hope we can meet up soon. Here is a train ticket or a plane ticket or something so we can meet again." So in the same way, Krishna is writing us a letter, the Srimad Bhagavatam, saying, "My dear friend, I really, really miss you. I've not seen you for such a long time. Here is the train ticket back to Goloka Vrindavan." Okay, so we can take the Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita in this spirit. This is Krishna's message saying, "I really miss you. This is the way to live in this world. So when you leave the world, you can come back to me." Okay, this is a very great inspiration, at least for me. Okay. And now, as we start the first canto, this is just a quick overview of the first canto. I use this Bhagavad Subodhini by Gauranga Darshan Prabhu a lot. So if you're able to get this will be very, very helpful for your studies. Of course, Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam as well. So these two are the main books we'll use. And then if you can get other books, Burijam Prabhu's books, there's so many other ones as well, but this is really good. So this structure is from Subodhini, from Gauranga Darshan Prabhu. So the first part of Canto 1 is the 6 questions by the sages, which they ask in the first chapter, and then the reply to those to those 6 questions, which is basically finished by the end of the third chapter. So the first 3 chapters are the 6 questions and the 6 answers. We'll go through these 6 questions in detail. What is the ultimate good for all the people? What is the essence of all the scriptures? Why did Krishna appear as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki? Tell us about the Purusha avatars. Tell us about the Lila avatars. And where did religion and knowledge take shelter after the disappearance of Lord Krishna? So these are the 6 questions. It's a bit difficult because the sages don't ask question number 1, what is the ultimate good for all people? So you need to kind of look for it, but these are the 6 questions. And then I also put here the answers and where you can find the answers. So this is the first 3 chapters. And then after Sutta Goswami answers them, then the sages ask 4 more questions, all related to the Bhagavatam, because the answer to the last question, where did religion and knowledge take shelter after disappearance of Krishna? The answer is religion and knowledge took shelter in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, the next part of the first canto is the sages are asking, okay, tell us about the Bhagavatam. Tell us the history of the Bhagavatam, the birth and activities of Parikshit Maharaj, the hearer of the Bhagavatam, and then Shukadev Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam. So the 4 questions relate to this Bhagavatam, the hearer of the Bhagavatam, and the speaker of the Bhagavatam. And then the answers to these questions take us to the end of Canto 1. So this is an overview of the first canto. All these slides I will put up on the Google Classroom, so you can see them after. And then this is the overview of the first chapter. So the first 3 verses, you could say, are the prelude to the whole Bhagavatam, to the first canto. Then text 4 to 8, the sages glorify Sutta Goswami. When you want to ask a question or when you want something from someone, it's always good to create a positive atmosphere. So the sages, before asking their questions from Sutta Goswami, they glorify him to kind of make him more happy to answer their questions. And then the condemned state of Kali Yuga, how difficult it is to live in Kali Yuga, which I guess we all have personal experience of. And then the 6 questions. Okay. Any points, questions, comments so far? Am I going too fast, too slow? Okay, I take it that everyone's happy. Okay, so next, you've all done, or most of you've done Bhakti Shastri. Some of you, it's been a while. So we went through this a few times in Bhakti Shastri. Does anyone remember what Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana are? Charanarenu, I can see that you might know.
Sambandha is knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. And then Abhidaya is the process, devotional service of developing that relationship. And Prayojana is the goal of love of God.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much. So these first three verses of the Bhagavatam, you could also see them in light of the Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. Sambandha, knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. Abhideya, activities in terms of that relationship, devotional service, developing that relationship. And Prayojana is relishing that relationship, or the ultimate goal, pure love of God. In fact, everything we read, the whole Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, all the Vedic scriptures can be put in these Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana categories. So once you kind of get that in your mind, then as you're reading, you're kind of thinking, okay, this is more about Sambandha, this is more about Abhideya, this is more about Prayojana. It's very interesting. So the first verse is about Sambandha. So it establishes who's the Supreme Absolute Truth, Krishna, so we can establish our relationship with him. So it's knowledge about Krishna. The second verse is Abhideya, acting in that relationship, rejecting false religion, acting in terms of real religion, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we don't need anything else. And then Prayojana is the third verse, relishing the sweetness, Sukhamukad Amrita Dravasamyutam. It's like a nectar, fruit, mango touched by the beak of the parrot, it's Srimad Bhagavatam, and relishing this sweetness. So these are the first three verses. And then there's a little quote. There are three purposes in the Vedas. One is to understand our relationship with Krishna, Sambandha. Another is to act according to that relationship, Abhideya. And the third is to reach the ultimate goal, Prayojana. Okay. And with this prelude, we'll read the first verse. So we'll try to do the same thing as we do in Bhakti Shastri, that I read the Sanskrit and then somebody can read the translation. So that way, if nothing else, we hear the whole Bhagavatam. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadasya Yatorvayaditarataschartesha Vigyasvarat Tene Brahma Hridayadi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Varimridam Yata Vinimayo Yatrachi Sargom Risha Namna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. Raghunath Bhatta Prabhu, can you read the translation?
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire, or land seen in water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Thank you. So there is a lot just in the translation, and then there is a really long purport. So we're not going to read the whole purport, but I'll give you a kind of tool with which in your own time you can go through the purport and see a lot of wonderful depth in it. So there are 7 features of the Absolute Truth that I described in this verse as we go through the word for word. So the first feature is this Janmad Asayato. So Krishna is the primeval cause of all causes. He is the cause of creation, maintenance, destruction. There is no other cause. If we go back to all the different causes, all the different things, ultimately it all goes back to Krishna. Everything is Janma, everything is born from him. The next one is Abhigya. He's fully cognizant, meaning he's directly and indirectly knows everything. So what does this mean? So if I pinch someone, then I indirectly know what's happening to them. If I pinch myself, then I can feel the pinch. Then I directly know. But if I look at my arm as I'm pinching my arm, then I'm both directly and indirectly conscious of what's happening. So directly because I can feel the pinch, and indirectly because I see that it's happening. Now, in the previous aspect, it says that everything is Krishna's energy, everything is emanating from him. So in one sense, everything is Krishna's body. So when I pinch my own body, I can directly and indirectly see it and feel it. But because for Krishna, everything is his body, then for Krishna, he's directly and indirectly conscious of everything. Is this okay? Is this understandable? Okay. The next one is Swarat. He's fully independent. So we may be more or less independent in our life, depending on how much money we have, what life situation we are in, what kind of personality we have. But nobody is completely independent, because we depend on this world, we depend on food, we need certain things. So the only thing that's completely, or the only person who's completely independent is Krishna. Everything and everyone else depends on something and someone else that ultimately depends on Krishna. So Krishna is the only Swarat. So he's the only person who's fully cognizant, and he's the only person who's fully independent. And then the next aspect is Distreni Brahma Hridaya Adikavai. So he imparted Vedic knowledge to Brahma through his heart. So this aspect again links back to the previous ones. So because he's fully cognizant, he's the person who can best give knowledge. He's fully independent. He doesn't depend on anyone else for his knowledge or for anything else. He can give knowledge to the first living entity. And because he's the primeval cause, again, he's the cause of Brahma, he's the cause of knowledge, he can give cause to Brahma, the first living entity. And then he can give knowledge through his heart, although usually knowledge is given through the ears. And the fifth one, Mukhyantiya Suraya, by whom even great devas are bewildered. So he can give knowledge, but he can also bewilder people. So both knowledge and forgetfulness, reality and illusion, everything comes from him. And the next one is again related to this, Yatra Trisargo Mrisha. So only because of him do these temporarily manifested universes appear factual. So there's some explanation that the false ego in 3 different modes manifests different elements and they combine to make this universe. So when we go into 2nd canto, 3rd canto, we are studying in detail the process of creation. But for the time being, this material world, it's not unreal, it's real, but it's temporary. And because it's temporary, in that sense, it's illusory. But because of Krishna's energy, then we think it's real. We think it's eternal. We think that this is the only thing. So suffering is not unreal, but it's temporary. But when we think that that's reality, that's the only thing, then that becomes illusion. So thinking that this world is eternal, is real, that's illusion. It's not that, I can walk through a wall because it's not there. It's there, and if I try to walk through it, I will bump my head. But thinking that the wall is the ultimate reality, that's the illusion. Okay, and then the last one is Damnasvena Sadani Rasta Guhakam. So he's eternally existent in a spiritual abode, which is permanently devoid of illusion. So again, this is related to the previous one. So the previous one, this universe appears factual because of his energy, but actually this is illusory because it's temporary. But his eternal abode, his spiritual abode is eternal, and it's real, and it's permanently devoid of illusion. So the only way you can go to Krishna's abode if you also become free from this illusion. So these are the 7 aspects or 7 features of the absolute truth that are described in the verse. And Prabhupada's purport very, just one sec, I find something, very in great detail goes through it. Let me find. Yeah. So this is just something I did just to give you an idea of something you can do. So as you read through the purport, let's say you look at the first paragraph, and then you can see which of these 7 features is the first paragraph mostly related to. Some paragraphs you will find 2 or 3. So for me, the first paragraph was mostly related to the first aspect, this Janmadasya Yato, and the Trine Brahma Hridayadi Kavaye, he imparted Vedic knowledge. Then you can look at the second paragraph. Again, look at which of these aspects mostly does the paragraph relate to. So you can go through, it's 14 paragraphs altogether, the purport, it's quite long. And then it doesn't have to be the exact same thing as I did it. It's what I'm saying is this is a good technique or a good tool to kind of study a purport in depth and kind of think about the translation of the verse as well, because especially with such a long purport, it's easy to get lost. It's easy to forget where am I, what the verse is about, how is the purport related to the verse. Okay, so this is just something you can do if you want. It's a good way to study. And like I said, these first 3 verses, especially the first one, is very, very technical, very detailed, but don't get kind of, what's the word for it? Don't get intimidated, don't get scared by it. Just pray to Krishna, pray to the Bhagavatam, that they manifest through your heart, just like Krishna manifested through Brahma's heart. The Bhagavatam can also manifest the knowledge, the understanding through your heart. And then if we approach the Bhagavatam with this attitude of gratitude, devotion, prayerfulness, service, then you see the Bhagavatam reciprocating. The Bhagavatam is a person. Okay, is this okay so far? Okay, so for this first verse, I won't do it with every verse, but with this first verse, I also wanted to go in a little detail about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport to the same verse. So if you are really a connoisseur, there is a book called Sarartha Darshini. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on the Bhagavatam. So just like Prabhupada translated and wrote a commentary purport on the Bhagavatam, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, many other acharyas as well, but this is quite easily available. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also wrote quite a long commentary, and if you know Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentaries, they're usually very rasika. They go very much into the relishing, tasting. It's very, very interesting. So Prabhupada's purport is very much the philosophy, establishing the philosophy. So we'll look a little bit at how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a purport. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur compares the Bhagavatam to 4 things. So the Bhagavatam is like a lamp, a sun, a tasty fruit, and Mohini Murti, the Mohini Murti incarnation of Krishna. And for each of these things and person, he gives a slightly different translation of the same verse. Those of you who did Bhakti Shastri recently, do you remember when we had the, I think it was the first verse of Nectar of Devotion, this Akila Rasamrita Murti verse. And there were two completely different translations. One is about offering obeisances to Krishna, and the other one is all about the gopis and Taraka and all the other gopis. It's the same verse. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does something very similar with this Janmadasya Tonvayad verse. He gives 4 different translations, and then he says the first translation is like a lamp because it destroys darkness by its light. So that translation is most like Prabhupada's translation. It destroys the darkness of ignorance by describing the transcendental features of Krishna, the absolute truth. The second translation is like the sun. It destroys darkness and gives joy. So a lamp is small, it destroys darkness in a room. Sun destroys darkness all over. So the Srimad Bhagavatam similarly destroys misconceptions and gives joy to the devotees. And then the third translation is like a tasty fruit. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is like a tasty fruit because it reveals to us the nectar of the Madhura Rasa, the relationship between Krishna and the gopis, Krishna and Srimati Radharani and pure bhakti. And then the fourth translation is like Mohini Murti. Mohini Murti is the incarnation of Krishna who kind of stole the nectar from the demons and gave it to the devotees. You probably read that pastime, and Rahu, one of the demons, sat among the demigods. He also wanted the nectar of immortality. And just as he was about to drink it, then Mohini Murti cut his head off. But because the nectar already touched his head, so his head became eternal, the rest of his body was destroyed. And apparently his head is kind of circling around like a dark planet, and that's what's causing the lunar and solar eclipses. So this is the picture here. But the point is that Mohini Murti gave the nectar to the devotees and hid it from the demons. So in the similar way, when we read the Bhagavatam, if we are in a devotional mood, then the Bhagavatam will reveal so much nectar. And if we are not in such a devotional mood, then it will hide it. It becomes boring. There was one devotee who, probably not in a very devotional mood, he said that when he can't sleep at night, he opens the Bhagavatam and starts reading it, and very quickly he becomes sleepy and falls asleep. So I guess that's when the Bhagavatam hides the nectar, when we use it as a sleeping aid. But if we approach the Bhagavatam in the proper mood, then we can get so much nectar. So here are the 5 different translations. There's the tasty fruit. There are 3 tasty fruits. In fact, I might have done this wrong. This is from, again, from the Subodhini. This is not going to be in any of the closed book exams or open book exams or any of that, so don't worry about this, but it's a very interesting. I get really excited about this, and I get a lot of nectar from it, so I want to share it with the devotees who I think are similarly inclined. That's the only reason I put it up. And if I can find it, I see if I might have made a mistake with the... Anyway, I'll look at it later. But you can see all the kind of phrases. So, Janmadasayata, Anvayata Itaratascha, Artesh Abhigya Swarat. So it's the same verse that we've read, the first verse. But according to the different kind of approaches, there are different translations for each. So Janmadasya Yataha can mean the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universes. Or it can mean who, after appearing in Vasudev's house, went to Nanda Maharaj's house. Or it can mean from whom arises the height of Madhura Rasa, or which brings about the appearance of Lord as Bhagavan. Okay. So each phrase has a different meaning depending on the aspect. And then if you read it down the way, So if you read like the light yellow, or if you only read the orange, go down the green, then you get the whole verse translation. So the first translation would be the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe, the material efficient cause, the only knower of all objects, the only independent being. And then the second one is who, after appearing in Vasudev's house, went to Nanda Maharaj's house, knowing how to cheat Kamsa and knowing the appearance of his devotees Prema and Raja, remained there because of his own people, though he is ever independent. And then it continues here. Revealed to Brahma that the boys and calves that were actually the supreme Brahman, which bewilders even Narada, whose body, though appearing material to the demons, is not temporary at all, through his abode in Mathura by revelation of his form, like that. So each translation is of the same phrases, but it just gives a different translation. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's relishing the nectar. Okay. So again, you can look at it later in great depth and hopefully get as excited or even more excited than as I am. Anything at this point? Any questions, comments, points? Okay. And then other acharyas, Jiva Goswami, other acharyas also gave purports, but we're not going to go so much into that. Okay. I wasn't going to speak much more on the first verse because this is something that you can go through the long purport on your own, read it, try to kind of study it, understand it. So I thought we can continue with the second verse. Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vidyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamunikrite kim va parairishvara Sajjo rijya varujyate trakitibe shushushubistachanat. Who's feeling? Oh, let's have Brajadevi read the translation.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Thank you. So again, we'll go through it little bit by bit, the different kind of phrases. So Dharma Projita, this kind of kicks out all pretentious religions. So remember we said that Bhagavad Gita starts with Sarva Dharman Parityaja, abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. So abandon all lower varieties of religion. The highest religion is Param Dharma, serving Krishna. And this is what Srimad Bhagavatam starts with. So Bhagavad Gita ended with Sarva Dharman Parityaja. Srimad Bhagavatam starts with Dharma Projita Kaitavo. So Kaitava means cheating. Prabhupada translates it as covered by fruitive intention. Because if you do religion to get something out of it, to get some fruits out of it for yourself, then it's actually cheating because you're not doing it to please Krishna, to please God, but you're doing it for yourself. So that's why it's called cheating religion. So all kind of cheating religion is completely rejected. So any dharma, any religion that's for artha, for money, kama, for sense enjoyment, or even for moksha, even for liberation. Because liberation ultimately means make me free from suffering. So all these kind of selfish religion is rejected, and it only propounds the highest truth, parama. So parama means highest. It propounds the highest truth, no compromise. It's purely transcendental literature, and which means that only the purest people can truly appreciate it. Envious people can't. So that's why it's nirmatsaranam satam. So matsara means envy, and nirmatsara means free from envy. To the extent that we have envy in our heart, the meaning of the Srimad Bhagavatam is covered. So like I said before, the Srimad Bhagavatam is a person, and this person Bhagavat manifests according to the purity of the heart. Material education is not really, doesn't really work in this way. So you go to school, you go to university, they tell you how titration works in chemicals, and then you know. But transcendental knowledge works in a completely different way. So still, you know, we read, we study, we hear, but the knowledge manifests according to our attitude and according to how much blessings and mercy we get from higher authorities, or the speaker, or kind of great devotees. And envy is a very great disqualification. In the spiritual world, there is no envy. You know, later on we'll read in the Bhagavatam how all the beautiful and fragrant flowers, they glorify Tulsi, even though Tulsi doesn't have, you know, very colorful and very fragrant flowers, but they know that because Tulsi is the most dear to Krishna, rather than being envious of her, they glorify her. The same way, you know, the birds singing really beautifully, but when they hear the bumblebee buzzing, because that reminds them of Krishna Katha, then they all kind of become quiet so they can hear the bumblebee and remember Krishna. So there is no envy, no putting other people down so we can feel better about ourselves. It's only encouragement and kind of serving together. That mood is Vaikuntha. Srimati Radharani, you know, sometimes she's compared to a creeper, like a plant that grows around the tree of Krishna, and all the leaves on her are all the different gopis. And Krishna's pastimes are like the water that waters this creeper of Radharani. And when the pastimes are there, it's not that only Radharani feels enlivened, or the twigs, or the leaves, or the branches, everyone gets enlivened. So Srimati Radharani is pushing the other gopis so they can serve Krishna. She's not envious. She doesn't think that, you know, I'm the only person who should do this and you're not as good as me. So all these pastimes, all these examples are there to show us this mood of non-enviousness that will help us enter into the mood of the Bhagavatam. There is a personal experience which I sometimes share. I did book distribution Sankirtan for quite a long time, and I was kind of fairly successful at it. But then, you know, I had my family, I had children, so I didn't do it so much. And but during the Christmas marathon, I still went out. And there was one time, there was one lady, I think she was from Germany, and she just came. You know, she wasn't initiated or anything. She just started book distribution. I was working with her and trying to encourage her, give her some tips, and she was very, very good at it. And every day she became better and better. You know, she kind of used some of the tips, but she had her own things as well, and she became better and better. And eventually, she was doing a lot better than I did. But I had this really strange feeling that rather than being upset that why is she doing better than me, I got really excited. And every day when she was doing better and better, I felt like happier that she did so well than if I did that well. So I thought this is I thought maybe some of the envy from my heart is becoming purified. So when we can be happy for other devotees' success, other devotees' advancement, then that's a sign that maybe that envy is decreasing in our heart. Okay. And then Prabhupada, in the purport, he speaks about this non-enviousness, and he, in fact, describes 3 levels of non-enviousness. Yeah, it's here. So this is the quote from the purport. Triloka Chaitanya Mataji, are you able to read this quote?
Yes. Such transcendentalists are non-envious and pure in heart. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is a competition. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free from material envy, but are well-wishers to everyone, and they strive to establish a competitionless society with God in the center. Purport 3.
So these are the 3 levels. So first, they're not envious of other people, but they're not just not envious, meaning like they don't try to push them down, but they're actually the well-wishers of other people. They want them to do well. And then the 3rd level is they strive to establish a competitionless society with God in center. So they're not envious of others, don't try to push them down. They try to elevate them, they're well-wishers, and then they want everybody else to be like that as well. So these are the 3 levels of non-enviousness. Okay. Now the next phrase that we'll speak about is this tapatrayon mulanam. So tapatrayon mulanam means that it uproots the 3-fold miseries. Where is it? So tapatraya, traya means 3, tapa means suffering, so the 3-fold miseries. Mula means root, and anmulanam means uprooting or causing the uprooting of. So tapatrayan mulanam means causing the uprooting of the 3-fold miseries. Now, when we read this, that reading the Srimad Bhagavatam uproots the 3-fold miseries, does it mean that now we start studying Bhakti Vaibhava, we read Srimad Bhagavatam at home, we'll never get sick again, we'll never have any troubles in life, all our 3-fold miseries, we will never be outside when it's raining? What do you think? How does it uproot the 3-fold miseries?
It helps you deal with it.
Okay, so how does it help you deal with it?
Well, it explains, like, obviously, like you said, it's a state of mind or consciousness. So by reading it, it shows you the path in which you can better understand your situation and deal with it. And not, like you say, sometimes quite easily you could have been envious of the other devotee that they're doing so well and you're not. But because you have the understanding of this, it helps you.
Yeah, so basically that's the answer. Thank you, Prabhu. That it helps you deal with it. Okay, so the 3-fold miseries, who knows what are the 3-fold miseries? What are the 3 types of suffering?
Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, and Adidaivika.
Perfect. Can you tell us in English as well?
Yeah, Adhyatmika means sufferings that come from our body and mind. Adidaivika means suffering that comes from the weather conditions or all kinds, and demigods, and Adibhautika sufferings that come from other living entities, like mosquitoes. As my Gurudev said, Adi Devotika.
So it's not just mosquitoes, sometimes it's people.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes people pinch us as well. Okay, so suffering coming from our own body and mind, suffering coming from other living entities, and suffering coming from demigods in ways of like natural disasters or something like that. So these are the 3-fold miseries, and it uproots it by, like Niracha Chandra Prabhu said, it helps us deal with it. So rather than seeing them as suffering, we see it as stepping stones to come closer to Krishna. Okay, so we can be in a consciousness that this obstacle, this challenge, this difficulty is terrible, unfair, unjust. Why is Krishna doing this to me? Does Krishna even exist? I've been chanting for so long. Does Krishna not hear my chanting? Why is he doing this to me? Or we can have the consciousness that there must be a reason why Krishna is doing this to me, and the reason must be that through these difficulties, somehow I can get closer to him. Somehow I can cross the ocean of material existence. This may be stepping stones. So there is, later in the 6th canto, there is a beautiful verse by Chitraketu. It's Guna Pravahi Etosmin Ko Shapa Ko Anugraha. So he says, what is a curse and what is a blessing? So if you look at Chitraketu's life, he's definitely a person, you know, his life is always up and down, you know, he was the emperor of the whole world. He had, I don't know, 90 million wives. You know, if anyone could enjoy, he could. But he didn't have a son. So up, down. Then these sages came, I think Narada Muni, maybe Angira Rishi, gave him a benediction, you will have a son. Up. But the son will be called Harsha Shoka, happiness and distress. Down. So he did have the son, again, really happy. But the co-wives of the mother of the son became envious and poisoned the child. Definitely down. But then he kind of understood, you know, Angira Rishi came back, he explained the truth to him, he became, underwent some austerities and became this, not a Gandharva, but something similar, like he was flying around in this aeroplane, again up. He was flying around, he saw Lord Shiva with Parvati on his lap, and he kind of laughed and made some comments. So Parvati cursed him to become a demon. Down again. And he was fighting with Indra. Indra killed him. Definitely down. But then it appeared that it is just a way of getting him closer to his Supreme Lord, his worshipable Lord, Lord Sankarshan. So his life was definitely full of ups and downs. And if we think our life is full of ups and downs, you know, times it by, I don't know, 100. But he said, you know, what is a benediction and what is a curse? Something that appears to be a curse later on turns out to be a benediction. Something that we think is a benediction, you know, he had a son. Later on it turned out to be a curse because it caused so much suffering for him. So the Bhagavatam gives us this consciousness to deal with things, and rather than seeing as difficulty or, you know, how much I'm enjoying in this world, just understand that, okay, all these are steps that I should take, stepping stones that I can come closer to Krishna. Okay, another point about this verse, that it was written by Vyasadeva, who's an incarnation of Krishna, in his maturity. So Vyasadeva wrote all these different Vedic literatures, but he was still unhappy, frustrated. And in his mind, he started having this kind of hint, or this idea that maybe I didn't glorify Krishna enough. That may be the reason. And then his spiritual master, Narada Muni, arrived and confirmed, yes, that's the reason. And now you should write something directly glorifying Krishna and the process of devotional service. So this is when Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam. So with all the rest of the Vedas, they're very important. They're very, we should be very respectful. But if the author wasn't satisfied after writing them, then they definitely won't give us full satisfaction. But after writing the Bhagavatam in his maturity, then Vyasadeva was fully satisfied. So in the same way, that will give us full satisfaction. And that's why it says, what is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, then knowledge of the Supreme Lord is established in the heart. So then it's not enough just to read, then it's to be at the attentive and submissive hearing and reading. It sounds very simple, the application can be difficult, but just by hearing in the right way, we can establish the Supreme Lord, the knowledge of the Supreme Lord, and we can realize Krishna. So all these blessings are there. And then Prabhupada basically elaborates on all these points in the purport. Any thoughts, comments relating to what we spoke so far? Okay. Guru Bhakti, are you saying something to us or?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I was on mute. I was just asking about like, are you gonna be expected to read a certain portion like we did in Bhakti Shastri? For example, for the next time you need to read like the first few chapters, like that.
Yeah, if you are able to do that. So today we may be able to finish the first 3 verses, may not be, but at least that's my goal. And then next week we can do hopefully the rest of the first chapter and start second chapter. That's the idea. But I'd rather just go at a pace that everybody's happy with. If there is comments or questions, we can go through it rather than having a very rigid, I have to finish this verse, if you see what I mean. But that's the idea. Is this okay with everyone? Okay, so we can read the next verse. So remember, this is the relishing, the prayojana. Nigamakapataror galitam phalam shukamukadamrita dravasamyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvibhavuka. Yadira, would you be able to read the translation? Okay, maybe she can get it. Megambari, can you read the translation?
Hare Krishna. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So this is the relishing. So Nigama means the Vedic literatures. And these Vedas are compared to a Kalpataru, a desire tree, because everyone can get what they desire. So the Vedic literatures, the whole kind of Vedic system of religion is such that it's very inclusive. Wherever you are in terms of spiritual advancement, you can fit in there. So if people want to be successful in this life, they want wealth, power, fame, good health, there is certain ways, you worship this demigod, you follow this process. This is a time of Navaratri. Now that I work in this Hindu school, I became a lot more aware of all these different Hindu festivals that are there. So they worship Goddess Durga. You get so much material benefit from that. And it's good in the sense it helps people understand that material achievements don't just depend on them. It doesn't just depend on their own efforts. They also need some higher power to give their blessings or their mercy. So it's definitely a step in the right direction, but it's not the highest. But it's there. So all these Vedic scriptures are like a desire tree. Whatever you desire, it gives you that. If you want wealth, this is what you should do. If you want power, if you want good health, if you want a good family, and if you want love of God, then this is what you should do. So the Vedas are a desire tree, and then Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit, the mature fruit, because that's the best thing you can get. Not everybody wants it, because some people want other things from it, not realizing that this is the best thing, but this is the ripened fruit. This is Galitam, which means fully matured. And this Galitam Phalam, the fully matured, fully ripened fruit, is Raganuga Bhakti. Again, many of you just finished Bhakti Shastri. So Raganuga Bhakti is when the inspiration for devotional service doesn't come from rules and regulations, no, not from an external pressure, but it's an internal desire that you really, really want to serve Krishna. Okay, so that's Raganuga Bhakti. And why there's so many rules that kind of you have to follow, so they keep you on the right path. But with this mature fruit, ripened fruit, Raganuga Bhakti, there is no force. It's completely natural. And it follows the sentiments of the gopis, who are the highest emblems of this Raganuga Bhakti. And then Shukamukad Amrita Drava Samyutam. So it emanated from the lips of Shukadev Goswami. Shuka is the name of Shukadev Goswami. It also means parrot. So it says when there is like a tree with some nice fruits on it, somehow the parrots know which are the best, the sweetest fruits, and they kind of pick at it. And the beak of the parrot makes that fruit somehow even sweeter. So that's why when Shukadev Goswami, who you could say is a parrot, is actually a parrot in the spiritual world, he kind of touched with his lips that this fully ripened fruit of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it became even sweeter. So it was already very sweet when Vyasadeva wrote it, but when Shukadev Goswami spoke it, it became even sweeter. So when Shukadev Goswami spoke the Bhagavatam, I don't know if I will find the picture. There's certainly no photographs, but from the descriptions we know. So when Shukadev Goswami spoke the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, in the audience, Narada Muni was sitting there, Vyasadeva was sitting there. So Vyasadeva, who originally wrote the Bhagavatam, Narada, who inspired Vyasadeva to write the Bhagavatam, they were sitting there, but they were also relishing newer and newer meanings. So it wasn't like, oh, I heard this, I wrote it, but he can't say anything new to me. But somehow, because it emanated from the lips of Shukadev Goswami, they got so much more meaning, so much more depth. You can see Vyasadeva, Narada Muni are really excited sitting there listening to Shukadev Goswami. So because it emanated from the lips of Shukadev Goswami, this fruit has become even more tasteful, even though it was already relishable for all, including liberated souls, so Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, and so many others. So Krishna's pastimes are very sweet. We all have experience of that. But when devotees describe Krishna's pastimes, they become even sweeter. So you can read Krishna's pastimes in different books, but when you hear somebody like Dinabandhu describing it, it's like, wow, you're there. It becomes even sweeter. Or there's another nice example I heard, is Krishna steals butter. That's one of the main jobs Krishna does, is he goes around the houses in Vrindavan stealing butter. There's only one house where he doesn't steal butter most of the time, is Mother Yashoda's house, although sometimes he does it as well. But all the gopis, they're making butter so Krishna can steal it. But they're thinking, poor Yashoda, she can't relish all these pastimes of Krishna stealing butter. So they go to Yashoda's house, apparently to complain, you know what your son did, he's terrible, you should really kind of start disciplining him. And then they tell her all the things that Krishna did, how he how he managed to steal the butter and pinch the little babies, so they start crying, and all these pastimes of Krishna. Apparently they're complaining, but actually they're kind of helping Mother Yashoda and themselves also to relish these pastimes even more. So the pastimes are very sweet, but when we hear them from devotees, they become even sweeter. And that's why we want to have millions of ears so we can hear Krishna Katha from devotees. That's pibata, or drinking. So, okay. And then it's rasam alayam. So you drink this nectar until liberation and even after liberation. And after liberation, this laya can mean liberation, but it can also mean the 8 symptoms of Ashta Sattvika Bhava, some very elevated level of pure devotion. So even when you're at that level, you still relish the Srimad Bhagavatam. And muhur means again and again. You drink this muhur ahorasika always, again and again. So I think it's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, you hear it, you drink this nectar until you faint in ecstasy, and when you come back, you continue drinking and hearing it and fainting again. So again and again, always here. And Bhagavatam, Pibata Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam, that means that which belongs to Bhagavan. So he alone gives Bhagavatam to the devotees, Bhagavan, Lord Krishna. And there are 2 kinds of Bhagavatas. One is the book Bhagavata that we are reading just now, and the other is the devotee Bhagavat, the person who realized the Bhagavatam, who lives according to the Bhagavatam, and who, when he speaks, it's like the Bhagavatam. So Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. And Muhur Aho, we said Muhur again and again. Aho just means oh. So he's also very excited. Rasika. So Rasika means that it's only for devotees. Karmis, Gyanis, they can't appreciate Bhagavatam properly because their goal in life is either material enjoyment or liberation from material enjoyment. So they're not able to properly appreciate the Bhagavatam. Is it okay if we go until 1:45? This is something I should have asked at the beginning. So if we do the classes, I was thinking an hour and a half, 2 hours, but then I thought let's do between the two. So an hour and 3/4, 7:45. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, so we can maybe finish this. Okay. And then Bhuvi Bhavuka. So Bhavuka means expert and thoughtful man. Prabhupada starts the translation with that, oh expert and thoughtful man. But Bhuvi means on the earth. So usually when a fruit falls down, it gets destroyed. So people try to pick the fruit from the tree itself. Otherwise, once it falls, then it gets, a bump and starts rotting. But this fruit of the Bhagavatam is handed down very carefully. That's why you need to hear it in the disciplic succession. So it doesn't get destroyed. In fact, each person, just like Shukadev Goswami, adds their own realization, their own nectar, their own sweetness to it. And that's why it's important to hear in the disciplic succession rather than from someone who's, a professional Bhagavatam reciter or somebody who just tries to understand it by their own material intelligence and academic, teaching, professor teaching the Bhagavatam. Because that's a little bit like throwing a stone at the fruit to try to get it off the tree rather than kind of handing it down. It damages the fruit. We don't get it in one piece. And then there's another really interesting aspect to this handing down of the fruit. In the Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, there is a description of Vrindavan in the autumn. So one of the points is that when people don't use a path, then it gets overgrown. So all the weeds grow up, and after a while you can't use the path anymore, or it's very, very difficult. You get grass, weeds, snakes, scorpions, so it's not safe. So people stop using it. So in the same way, when we study the Bhagavatam and then hand it to the next generation, that's like using the path. But if one generation doesn't study the Bhagavatam and doesn't hand it over to the next generation, then that path becomes overgrown and people forget people kind of lose the ability to understand the Bhagavatam, and that's why each generation has this responsibility to study and give to the next generation the knowledge, the Bhagavatam. That's our responsibility. That's our service, to pass on this knowledge. Okay. Another point that Prabhupada makes in the purport is that regulated knowledge involves gradual rising to the spiritual platform. Regulative knowledge involves a gradual rising of the living entity to the spiritual platform, and the highest spiritual realization is knowledge that the personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all spiritual tastes or rasas. For 10 extra marks, who remembers that name of Krishna, who's the reservoir of all spiritual tastes or rasas?
Akila Rasamrita Murti.
Perfect. Thank you, Guru Bhakti. It's in that verse of I think it's the first verse of the Nectar of Devotion. Thank you. So Akila Rasamrita Murti, he's the reservoir of all spiritual tastes and rasas. And it's very interesting how everybody sees Krishna in slightly different ways. So we can see it even among devotees, even our devotee friends or devotees who surround us. Everybody has a slightly different relationship with Krishna. But even in the spiritual world, even pure devotees, they all have different relationships with Krishna. There is a verse in the 10th canto. Of course, these are not all pure devotees it speaks about, but it describes that when Krishna entered the wrestling arena in Mathura, different people saw him differently. So that it describes 10 different categories of people who saw Krishna in different ways. So Kamsa saw him as death personified. The young ladies saw him as Cupid personified. The Yadus, they saw him as, he's one of our family. So all the different people, depending on their relationship, the way they approach Krishna, then they see Krishna in different ways. So that's why he's the reservoir of all rasas, the reservoir of all spiritual tastes. So Krishna manifests a unique mood for each and every individual devotee. It's millions and millions of unique moods and unique relationships. He's Akila Rasamrita Murti. And then Prabhupada also speaks about how rasas are exchanged between the same species, and then describes all these different rasas, the 5 primary, the 7 secondary rasas. And at the end, Prabhupada also speaks about how Shukadev Goswami is compared to a parrot, not because he's thoughtlessly repeating, but because because he can say it in a way that's relevant to the audience. That's the art of preaching. You repeat what you heard in a way that's relevant to the people that you're speaking to. So you can give the message, the details may be different, but the message is the same. So preserve the essence, and then you may change some details. This is what Prabhupada was such a great master of. Lord Chaitanya also, when he was preaching different people, he was, with Ramananda Roy, he was speaking about the highest Rasa Tattva, Bhakti Tattva. Sarva Bhattacharya was speaking philosophy. Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, the process of devotional service, general people, kirtan. So in the same way, we can also judge what's appropriate for what audience. So these 3 verses are the prelude to the rest of the chapter and also the rest of the Bhagavatam. We got 4 minutes left, and I read a really, really wonderful little, I don't know whether it's a little article by Keshav Maharaj relating to parrots. So maybe Ramananda Prabhu, if you can read it, hopefully you can read it in 4 minutes, and then we can close with that.
So this is Keshav Maharaj writing from Harvard University, where he's going to be based for the next year. In this chapter, the academy has become my monastery, a haven of study, absorption, and meditation, building bridges between the spiritual and the intellectual. I recently discovered I'm not alone. Hurrying towards a lecture, I was unexpectedly delayed, in the best possible way, by a Franciscan monk. He seemed completely out of place with that university passageway, and perhaps he felt the very same about me. A natural curiosity drew us together. We exchanged pleasantries, and his introduction got me intrigued. Firmly shaking my hand, he said, I'm a poet, priest, and parrot. The first two were clear, while the third hovered like a riddle. My thoughts went to the saintly parrot from ancient times, Shukadev, guardian of the sacred tales. Perched upon the tree of Vedic wisdom, his beak delighting in the juicy fruit of the Bhagavat, sharing it with the world, unchanged, unspoiled, rather made all the sweeter by his own relish. Was he referring to the sacred repetition of the good word which flows in every generation through the mouths of the saintly? Not so. My new Franciscan friend meant something quite different. I grew up a lover of poetry, he said. The beauty of words and wisdom led me to God. I entered the monastery, I became a priest. But in recent times, I felt myself become a parrot, mechanical repeating, imitating, echoing. I have lost my voice, my creativity and artistry. I'm here to find myself again. It was a striking opening line, eloquent in its brevity, clarity, and honesty. You still sound like a poet to me, I said, even though I sensed his silent regret. I could relate. It's not uncommon for the sanctuary to become a cage, where prayers feel like scripts not of our own making. At times, our own voice fades into the chorus of tradition, our individuality buried under the weight of collective expectation. He loved his community, his practices, his call to serve. Yet he understood that God's laws were meant to awaken spontaneity, not suppress it. I'm eager to return, he said with a smile, but this time as the poet. This is what true spirituality demands. Bhakti is art. To emulate and replicate is craft. To create afresh with authenticity is art. All art requires craft, but not all craft rises to the level of art. The artist, like the craftsman, patiently learns technique, refines it meticulously, invests hours of disciplined practice, and becomes a student of the masters. Taking that, the artist then finds a spontaneous voice that is unmistakably their own. Deep spirituality calls us to find our singular expression within a world of infinite possibility. Perhaps the monk's story mirrors that of many a spiritualist, those who, having found themselves, lose themselves again. If we are to be parrots, let it not be the mindless, imitative kind, but the poetic ones who repeat sacredly with realization and relish. May the poet who became a priest return once more to being a poet, a profound poet.
Thank you. This is a nice meditation. I leave you with this. Thank you very much for your association. I hope that this Bhakti Vaibhava course will help you get more relish, more absorption, more inspiration to read the Bhagavatam and to find Krishna on the pages of the Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Ki jai. Sadhu Seva Sadhu Sangha ki jai.
Jai.
Nandi. So see you next week, same time, same place. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Wishing everybody a great week.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Haribol.
Krishna.